All right, we are on. Okay.
Welcome, everybody. We are here for the Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 regular Board of Trustees meeting. I call this meeting to order. Ms. Kraft, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Faust?
Here.
Ms. Knapp?
Here.
Mr. Ringgold?
Here.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Sorry, I just need to get this recorder.
Oh, yes.
Will help. Say when we use the station.
We're pausing for technical difficulties.
Middle button is sold down.
Okay. All right. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Hearing none. We don't do the levy before general announcements?
That's how it was lined up.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So we're going to chat about the levy conversation, the fire levy, getting us to a point where we can let Ms. Kraft, do the paperwork and that kind of stuff. That sounds good. Okay. So let's chat about the levy.
I can start off the discussion. So in previous meetings, we've had open discussions regarding an additional fire levy to be put on the ballot this November. It is my understanding that the board is wanting to move forward with a $2 million additional levy for this November. But I just wanted to reopen the conversation as far as the the term of the levy. So what Ms. Kraft and her team put together here today is showing a 2, 3, and 4-year option for the levy, the additional levy, and wanted to just open that conversation from there with the board.
Well, I'll speak to that if you don't mind. So thank you, Fiscal Officer Kraft and your team, for putting these projections together. I think they're very helpful. And thank you to our Trustee Faust and Knapp for your previous conversations on this topic and your willingness to look at these projections. As I think previous discussions have kind of alluded to, that $2 million is sufficient to provide the additional funding that the township would need for the fire levy. But there's the question of the length. And I think these projections are helpful for kind of looking at what might be the best length to match up this 2 additional mills with our existing levy of 7 mills approximately. So from my look at this estimation, I think there had been previous conversation about 4 years compared to 2 years. And I thought it would be helpful to look at what the 3-year option might be as well. So if you look at 4 years starting there and going a little bit further down, I think you can see that we have a carryover into 2029. Well, that's certainly farther than calendar year 2027, when it's my understanding that our next 7 mil levy would be up for renewal. Let me rephrase that. Once the 7 mil levy is renewed, it would then come up again in 2027. I believe that's a consideration that we'll have for next year. But looking at the 2-year, you see in 2026 that there's a roughly $2,000 excess that would go into calendar year 2027. And then there would be an issue covering bills for 2028. 2,000 doesn't seem, in my opinion, to be that great of a carryover, besides what would be paid for in the first quarter through the first collection of 2027. But if you look at the 3-year option, you've got roughly 300,000, which would provide more of a cushion for the last year it would be collected would be 2026. But that would carry you through 2027, where, in my opinion, I think we could most appropriately match up this additional levy with the renewal that will likely be on the ballot next year. So, do you have any other thoughts on the timing for whether or not we pursue 2 versus 3 versus 4?
So if we did the 3-year, when would we be the next ask? I guess, is that 26?
So my understanding is that we have a 7 mil approximate renewal that we'll
Right.
have to ask residents for next year. That's the
24.
major source of funding
Right,
for the
yeah,
fire
that's the bulk of
department.
it. Right.
But that is on a 3-year cycle. So that would, if it were put on to tax year 2024 for first collection in 25, your 3 years would end in 2027.
That's effective through 27, which would mean collect through 28.
Okay. My brain sits around when do we ask the residents? Is
We would
that
ask in 20, Trustee Ringle's correct, we would ask in 27.
okay?
And in terms of just one additional thing to keep in mind, for renewal levies, you basically have, you can request that the year that it basically burns off, you can put it on the ballot the year before, and then you can put it on the ballot at any point, at any election during its final year. So,
Final year of collection.
final year collection.
Yes.
And my understanding from listening to the school board meetings is they're thinking to put things on the ballot in 24 and 28. They haven't nailed down what millage or what it's for and that kind of stuff, but it's just so we're aware of that additional factor when other people will also be asking.
Yeah, I think it would be good to avoid having the township's levies on the same ballot as the school districts, just so everyone can focus on that particular levy campaign.
Yeah.
So you're proposing, make sure I get this. So there's been some confusing information. So our current fire levy collects, when do the collections cease on that, the physical collections?
It
25.
it ends in 25.
So
Our current.
So the end of,
I have a little
25,
like
right?
reference sheet I can pass around. I have some scribbles on it, but
so you're proposing that it's the same collection?
I think ideally it'd be ideal to line up any additional levy with our renewal, so we don't have to have 1 year and then the next,
Right,
constantly going back to
And what you're
residents.
proposing, and that's what I was thinking, because I wanted to match that. So, because originally we asked for it in 2021 at the former board, and it was effective 2022, but it was collected in 2023. So this would be collected this year, or?
it would be assessed. The additional levy would be assessed in this year and start collecting in 24
So next
It'll be 24 and 25. So it would be
for 2 year. But
two. So you're suggesting 2 years.
I would suggest 3 years, because that would get us to 2027.
But
And
would
then-
wouldn't we want to match this up with the next requested fire levy?
Yes, and my understanding is the renewal will have to be on next year's ballot, and that will run for 3 years. So it would be collected in 2028, but it's usually best practice to put it on the ballot the year before it's last collected. That way you have that additional year of protection for potentially putting the levy on the ballot. So I think,
But if this is 3 years, I'm missing something.
So am I correct in
here.
thinking that, because I think, Lisa, your goal was to have them line up, so eventually we just end up with one.
Yeah, I
fire levy.
wanted to
Right,
both on the
right.
same year.
And what I think
correct?
I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, you say, Mike, is that we would not be able to do it this time, but the next time the big one is up, that's when everything would match up.
So you're saying wait till next year? Or
Or
wait until 2027. So I don't think we can, given our need for additional millage, get it to line up so that it would just be on next year's ballot. So that you'd have additional millage this year and then additional millage next year. I think it makes probably more sense to have them match up in 2027.
So we do one now that will last through 27 as far as
Yes,
collection,
yes.
and then that's when we bring in the larger one with our smaller one, and then we just have one.
Yes, and ideally I would think try and extend that for more than just 3 years, maybe
Maybe do
move
a
it to
5
5 years so that we're
That
not
the large one
constantly going
back.
back to the ballot.
Okay, okay, so we pass, so this one, and normally we would pass them a couple years before we collect, and I see what you're saying.
I'm good with that.
It's just weird that we're passing one 2 years later, that pretty much has the same terms, right?
Right. And I think that's
That makes, that was my ultimate goal, to have them line up and just ask for The
We
next
just don't think we
asking
can
for all, without the rollback, yeah.
do that one at this,
Mhm.
the next time that one, the big one.
So wouldn't that be a 4-year? Are you saying it's 3-year or 4-year?
3?
I think it's 4 because you would collect the new one if it's,
This year.
well, it depends on how you want, I mean, the way that we did our analysis was it was effective this year, collects first year 24. So we collect 24, 25, 26 is 3 years. So if you wanted to collect in 27 also, then that would be a 4-year.
No, the current one collects 23, 24, 25.
Correct. But she's
Collects.
talking about the new one.
But the new one would collect 23, 24, 25 as well.
So the renewal would have an
The
extra
new
year
one
of
would be
protection.
effective 23, 24, 25, collect 24,
You can
25,
have it,
26.
you can have it collect effective retroactively. That's the standard way. So the way.
You can have it collect and be effective in the same year?
Yeah, and that is what creates an arrearage for residents, but in this case, it won't be much. So basically, yeah, it will be, people have to pay their first half of this year, early next year. So basically, it's practically the same terms as, which is why it's weird, 2 years later, it's the same 3-year term as if you had passed it 2 years, the prior board, and just started collecting. That one you guys passed in 2021, but it wasn't effective until the 2022, but wasn't, I guess, collected until this year, right? Right?
We
Yes.
did, yeah, we're still collecting in 2022, when we put it on the ballot in 21. So.
The original one was.
Yes,
Or-
the 7.
Or was it?
No.
So that's why I didn't think you
I
could
thought-
collect and be effective in the same year.
I thought it was collected in 2023, or was that for 2022?
I think maybe the point that you're speaking to, Fiscal Officer Kraft, is that it won't be collected in 2027 if we do 3 years.
Exactly.
But we could
But-
still have the additional
Yeah, because
levy.
you have your carry forward.
Right.
Yes, agreed, because it's going to be a renewal with an ad. So you're just gonna treat it like it's a brand new levy, which is fine.
Right.
Yes, because it will reassess them based on current property values and everything else.
And that would take advantage of
Because it doesn't get the rollback anyways, the 2
the
month.
increased values in 2026.
But Julie, we can have an effective and collection year of the same year? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Because it goes, even though your election might be in November, if it passes, it could still go back to the effective date.
Effective, but I can't collect that.
Well,
Can I collect that same
you
year?
don't
It
mean
would
you
be,
get your
it would
money.
be collected, because real estate taxes are collected in arrears. It
Right.
could be collected, but he wouldn't actually receive
Get the
any
money,
funds
yeah.
until the following year.
And the payment you're collecting in January is based on what the valuations were when the levies passed. So that doesn't factor any of the things that would come online as as going from farm rate to land and improvement rate.
Correct.
Did we get those projections from Kaiser that show the increase in the number of houses that come online in full tax base over like the next 3 years?
So the auditor's office takes basically a snapshot, January 1 every year. And so yes, you're exactly right that it's something, if a piece of property is subdivided during that year.
But we have the numbers,
Until it-
because we do zoning, so we have the numbers of new builds and the projected new builds. We should be able to project over the next 3 years how that valuation is going to, how the valuation of the total township's going to increase by those homes coming online.
I'm not aware that the auditor's office does future forecasting of
We should
valuations.
be able to do that here because we know it's a year out, usually after you close, where the valuation reaches its initial point. Any of us have built understand that.
Mhm.
Okay, so the prior one was effective 2022, but collected in 2023. Or
Yes.
but was it not paid until, is it being collected? Are we getting money from that now? The
This is
20
our first year of collection.
So we
We
are
did get
getting
some.
the money
So
from that.
we got some of the first half of the beginning of January, February. We got our first collections from that, Lisa, is that correct?
From the renewal levy that was on the ballot in 21, yes.
Yes, it was because the levy was effective through 22, so it started collecting in 23.
Okay. But
I think what we're proposing with the additional is to make it effective for this year, and then it would be collected in 24 to start.
So would not be a 2-year then?
It would be 3. So if you look at, so my understanding, the first forecast provided there would be 2 years. And then if you look, your carryover from 2026 to 2027, you'd be able to get through your first collection, but with only $2,000 left over. And I think as Fiscal Officer Kraft has stated previously, this expenditure estimate does not include any additional hires for the fire department or any kind of emergency expenditures.
But to match it up, wouldn't that be a 2-year? To match it up for
As
the,
far as the voters,
yeah,
I
that would be
think what
2
we're saying
years.
is, right, but we don't.
So
that's not
if we
enough.
do a 2 years,
But we'll pass one in 2 years, the new one, to match them up. You're
But
saying.
again, that means they have to go out and ask the community this year in 23.
3 years
and ask
now.
the community again in 24.
and
Right.
25 if we're doing.
But we'd have to do that anyway next year, correct?
We have to do the renewal next year, either one.
Yeah, we have.
But then we have to do
So I would-
So you could do additional next year in
That's what
addition to the renewal.
That's why I was suggesting, just to get us through this short period and then just have it all on. I see, you're saying skip it, but if we skipped it, we'd have to have 5 year.
I think
So
Yes.
the 3-year would get us to 2027, with the 2-year not being collected in 2027, but you'd have enough money in 2027 to get to 2028. But I think that's a little bit longer runway for the two to mesh together, rather than ask for additional millage this year and then turn around and ask for additional
yeah, because
next year in addition to the renewal.
Yeah, it's 2 campaigns that we'd have to do, or the fire department would have to do. So.
It's possible, but I think it might be easier to match them up in 2027 rather than to put them both on the ballot next year.
because what we would be asking in 23, you'd be asking in 24 for the big one, and then we wouldn't be asking again until, if we wait till 27, then we're not asking until 20. Then we're back to
But what
break.
gets us through that intervening period between, we're gonna collect on this 23, 24, 25, so we'll get the money 24, 25, 26. And then, won't there be a gap?
There would be a gap with the 2 mil additional, but as you can see in that 2027 year with the
We still
second
have
forecast, we'd have 300,000
Is that enough to
above
get
and
us
beyond the first
through our first payment?
I thought we
collection in
had that.
2028.
Yeah, that will get you through the first quarter of 20.
3 years.
Okay, so we're basically asking, okay, so you're saying if we do that now, we still have enough money to get us through the next cycle.
Yes.
And then we can pull them all together in 27, and then we're down to 1.
Yeah, that takes advantage of the value increases in 23 and 26. And then it would also be the year, ideally, hopefully, before the school district, so that they're not conflicting.
And I have on my to-do list to reach out to the new superintendent Meyer and just chat with him about stuff, so
So I would recommend the 3-year, but
Chief, do you have any comments? The fire levy?
Sorry. I mean, after looking at everything, I think, you know, with the 2-year, what would happen is we'd actually be having 3 separate levies for a year, which might be a little harder for people to swallow because we'd have to have the one now, the renewal, and then there'd still be a year they lapse, so we'd have 3 actual levies. I think this way, the 3 years is going to help us to, hopefully things calm down in just the nation as far as, you know, inflation and everything. It'll take advantage of a couple increases in the future when we go to put together the 2 into 1 levy, and gives us a little more just time to try to, instead of, you know, put them all together.
So the 311,000 that is enough. I thought you had to have.
So
So what that $300,000 does, that's how much surplus you would have after accounting for first quarter expenses.
Yeah.
So after we pay it.
So-
But it says to cover.
so that,
So it's the excess to cover the first quarter
yeah,
expenses.
that was my confusion too, Trustee Knapp, was when I first looked at, but Lisa explained it to me. So basically what you see above it is everything accounted for, meaning that's the above number is what we need for, so the 4 million is what we need to cover into the first quarter. That 300,000 is just separate. That's for emergencies or anything else. So we'd have an additional 300,000 where if a major truck broke something, we'd be okay.
Yeah, the original way we were all discussing was that was the amount
That was,
actually like
so
the 3 million that we needed.
that was the 10-year plan I did for you, had it broken down that way. Ever since Lisa's done hers, it's showing you what you have, and that's all the requirements. The one above, end of year balance, is everything you need at the end of the year plus what you need to get it for.
Okay.
The bottom one is what you have left over after all the requirements,
Oh,
which
okay,
would,
so it's different when,
Yeah.
your presentation, okay.
Yeah, so you
That's
have a
what I was
$300,000
confused.
buffer to get us through that first quarter until we get the treasurer's payment. So that really then gets you through 28, because, you know, by then you get your money from the treasurer's office and we can get through the rest of the year.
Okay, so the label is kind of confusing. That's
Yeah, this is-
But I see the 4 million there, so that makes sense. It's just the way it's labeled.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's different. It's calculated differently from the last time we had this.
Like 4 different methods. And so I thought we were gonna be short that year, so we could possibly make it last. But yeah, that makes sense.
So then I'm hearing that we are comfortable with a 3-year to mill.
And then next year we do
And then
the
just to
renewal.
clarify, effective 2023, collect first year 24.
Which is next year.
Yes.
But we still will not capture, we will or will not capture the updated property values. We will
Not
not
this
capture
year.
the updated, but we will when we do the 27. And we
Yes.
will do the 26.
Yeah.
property
And-
as well.
Ideally, we would have been able to capture that additional value, but due to the projections that are further up on the spreadsheet, it became pretty apparent that we would not have sufficient money in the fund. Well, we'd be operating a deficit in the fund to cover expenditures into 2024 if we didn't have it effective this year and collected next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be short $1.1 million.
Is it 27 or 28 will we catch up and be able to have it back contained into one levy?
We'll do the ask in 27 and then the money will come in 28.
And then you'd have a realistic point at that time of all of the other stuff that's come online tax base to get a much more realistic and,
Do you want to come up and like say your name and address to get?
oh yeah. I've only done 8 million levies, but. Bill Weeble, 1505 Plumway Lane. And the only point I was making is once we get to that point where they're both going to align, we only have to do one levy. And if the township-wide valuation reaches the point that it should be projected to reach, we could renewal at close to what our basic renewal is right now, because it's taken that amount out of that whole pocket of people that we don't have online yet. And overall it actually reduces the overall out-of-pocket cost per household.
Well, we would have to have a renewal of the 7 mil and a renewal of the 2 mil. We'd still keep them separately because we have a rollback. We get about $1 million.
But you get the rollback on the renewal,
on the road.
and
yeah.
at that
So they
time,
still
you'll be able
separate.
to look at if you need, come 27 or 28, if you have to ask for the 2, because then you're going to have all of that
So we
new
get
and
the additional
projected
with the
construction that comes online.
Ideally, we'd be asking residents for less.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they love to hear that. And they don't understand it, but they love to hear that. Thanks.
So the about language, maybe it's in here, but you would say commencing in 2023, first due in calendar year 2024.
So, trustees, you'll see that on page 4 of the template that identifies that. And I did highlight the years column that will fill in, pending board approval. So the resolution in front of you still has it as the 2.0 millage. And then on the bottom of page 4, it says the tax year in which the tax will be first levied is 2023. The calendar year in which the tax will be first collected is 2024.
So there'll be 1 year where the taxes are slightly lower for residents. Is there 1 year that the 2 mil will not be collected?
Yes.
2020.
It would be 2027.
2027.
Right, and I think that goes back to the conversation of 3 versus 4. If you had it at 4 years, you'd have that additional collection in 2027, and you'd have an even larger carryover in 2029.
But do we have, I mean, as I've met with chief and our firefighter staff, there is frustration at times when we aren't, we're not fully staffed at 362. Is it prudent to do it at 3 years and just be having that $300,000, or do we have it for 4 so that if we did need to, as we continue to get more residents, that kind of stuff, is it better to do it for 4 so that if we needed to hire an additional firefighter, not to replace someone that's left, but just an additional, probably 2, right? I don't think 1 is enough.
I mean, I can even speak on that. Any additional money we have to expand and increase our operations would be helpful. But I mean, we're with the current evaluation and just the concern with taxes in general these days. I mean, 3 years, is a lot better than 2.
Okay.
So, Chief, I almost have something else to add to that, but.
That would also allow the levies to line up in 2027, whereas if you had the 4 years, you'd have additional years for the 2 mil that wouldn't necessarily be necessary for lining it up. So, and you put the levies ideally together in 2027.
Right.
So it becomes kind of a moot point. Hopefully the residents see the value that the fire department and the EMS department bring. And that 2027, it'll be very simple to make one proposal then.
And that was our discussion, was trying to marry those up, because otherwise you'll end up with that extra collection. Where this way it'll marry up where we'll be able to combine them. And then of course it'll be that year's, for the 2 will be that year's rate. And but yes, I mean, the goal is to bring on more people to support, the growing community. So
I guess we could add like 1.75 mil levy for 4 years or something if we wanted to collect the same amount. Okay.
But you're comfortable with the 3 year at the 2 mil? Chief?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, if everything goes up about 35%, it would be about a 1.5 mil renewal to keep that same 3.2 million.
Okay, so you see what I'm saying. Okay.
If that's what you're suggesting, it'd be about 1.5 mil.
And is that just a 35%
Just
increase in
35.
2023? So we'd
And
also
then
have an additional
ideally another
increase in
one on top of it.
2026. So that could potentially reduce that further.
What could?
The valuation in calendar year 2026. It's done every 3 years.
So you still want to go with 2 mil 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so I think we are good. Okay, thank you for that discussion. That's helpful. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Julie, does the trustees have to read this whole thing?
You have a title. Yes.
You can read. Well, give me just a second.
Well, there's a lot of sections that need to be filled. Right, I hear. They send us a draft, right, Lisa? Did they send it, so it's just to make sure we didn't.
And we'll get that in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, well, then I from what happens here, you guys approve this, we all sign it. I send it to the auditor's office, and they give us back the valuation of the levy,
And then I can
which
read
goes
that
into it goes into the resolution to proceed, which is the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. So, the board does not have to read the whole, you can read it by title, you don't have to read the whole resolution.
Okay.
Just make sure that the final version has the correct, any placeholders should be filled in. I think, Trustee Kringle was just saying that the years might be the only potential, and obviously the second.
But I just can read the title that's underlined.
Yep, you can just read the title. Yep.
But we're going to discuss though, we want to make sure we have this.
I mean, I can say that after I read it.
Yeah, can you do that? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. All right, I make a motion to approve Resolution 23-189, a resolution of necessity to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of providing fire and EMS services according to Revised Code 5705.03, 5705.19I, 5705.191, and 5705.25. And we are going to go to the community and ask for a 2 mil levy for a period of 3 years, collecting in 2020, beginning to collection in 2024.
So it would be, so the term of the tax levy is 3 years.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay, and then what's, okay, just making sure. Okay, second.
Ms. Knapp,
Yes?
Mr. Engel,
Yes?
Mrs. Faust.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to our general announcements section. I have lots of things. We had our first Orange Township sponsored 4th of July parade yesterday, and it was amazing. So thank you so much to, first off, our fearless leader, Sydney Herbert, who is our events and communications coordinator, and she has been amazing at getting everybody to do all the things. So thank you to her. Thank you to Val and Leah for all the time they spent building our float, for Michelle, for Kraft and Mr. Kraft, and Aaron for riding on, or for Nathan for riding on the float, for Trustee Knapp for passing out candy. Mike, you and I got to go with our individual campaign groups. We had our residents on our events committee that are incredibly helpful and were there yesterday. Cheryl McGowan and Laura Graham, along with her husband. A number of our staff was there with their spouses, so we could not have had a better day, a more fun event. We probably had, we're thinking 2,000 to 3,000 residents that were there. I think the route itself was great. There's always some hiccups the first time we do something, so we had an events meeting earlier today and have some things that we'll maybe tweak for next year, but overall we had a great day. So thank you to everybody that came, and thank you to everybody that helped. It was a really fun day. And then also, early last week, or maybe the week before, the trustees and Lisa Kraft, we all went out to break in the pickleball court, which we do not know how to play pickleball, but we had fun. So
Nobody got hurt.
nobody got hurt at that pickleball
That day.
that day. Then we also got, and Silas and Sydney were there for that as well, and then they showed us around the new restrooms and shelter house. Silas, do you know when that's opening? A couple weeks, month?
Yeah.
Ish, couple weeks. So that's pretty exciting. There's there's 2 family restrooms there, one that has a universal changing station, or will, and multiple restrooms, lots of space for all the families that use that facility, for different sport events throughout the year. So we are very excited to have moved forward with a number of these things that I know has been a passion of the township for years, probably like a decade at least, if not longer. So we're excited about that. So keep enjoying our things. And then the next community event that we're having is our Founders Festival that will be Saturday, September 30th from 2 to 6, and that's at North Orange Park, and we are beginning the planning stages for that. So that's going to be bounce houses and food trucks, vendors, just a fun day to get out and be together. Another opportunity to get out and be together as a community. So lots of fun things that are happening. Thank you so much for all of our volunteers and for our community for showing up. That was really fun.
Yeah, and I would like to thank the fire department for coming to not only the parade, but our neighborhood parade at Green Meadows, High Meadows. We've been doing that parade for, I don't know, decades, maybe 3 decades. So they did a great job as usual when they come and kind of show off the fire trucks, and always appreciate it. The kids go in and out and they kind of interact. So thank you very much to them. Very, very professional as always. They gave me a lift on the parade route when I got to Spuddy to continue. Especially great. Appreciate that. That's great.
Okay. Any more announcements?
I don't have any. Just
Okay.
great parade.
Yeah. Any agenda changes?
I have 2. The first is to fill in the blanks in the consent agenda regarding the third-party utility relocation. So that the vendor name is American Broadband Service, and then the amount is $25,000. And then I will have under operations report, there'll be 2 items now, which will be to rebid Veterans Memorial, which our Director of Operations will be explaining.
Do we have any questions on the consent agenda?
I have none.
I have none.
I make a motion. There we go. I make a motion to approve Resolution 23-190, approving the electronic record of the proceedings from the regular trustee meeting held on June 21st, 2023, and a motion to approve Resolution 23-199, or 191, sorry, approving purchase orders, then and now purchase orders and blanket purchase orders as listed.
Second?
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes.
Okay, our development and zonings report, please.
Good afternoon, trustees. On the zoning hearings and meetings report, we have one public hearing coming up later this evening at 5 p.m. For property located at 3773 East Powell Road, rezoning from plain commercial to a new plain commercial district to allow for the operation of a distillery for spirituous liquor, tasting room, and bar. And then we do have one agenda item on our Board of Zoning Appeals meeting this month, Thursday, July 20th at 6 p.m. That is various area variances and a conditional use for signage for proposed Popeyes located at 90370 Owenfield Drive. And then we do have our two tabled applications still, one with the Board of Trustees for the overlay application at 79 Parkway, and then one tabled application with the Board of Zoning Appeals for the conditional use for a place of worship on Vail Canyon Road. I do not have updates on those tabled applications at this time. I have nothing further unless the board has questions.
And then the Owenfield Drive, the Popeyes one, was that like a Tim Hortons before?
Yes.
Okay. Questions zoning?
No.
All right, thank you. So that's our operations report.
Good afternoon, board. First thing on today's operations report is an REA for the Census Engineer's Office regarding Highfield Drive. This is from a resident request for a speed study and potential study into installation of a stop sign at Highfield and High Meadows. So the REA is just to authorize Michelle to submit that to the county. The second piece I have, which was the agenda change, which is the Veterans Memorial update, making a recommendation to reject the bids for the Veterans Memorial based on a procedural and material change in the project manual that was found after the bids came in, and after talking with the consultants and the engineers a little bit, that change was recommended through them. So we would like to move to reject the bids and rebid that ASAP to keep the project on schedule.
So we don't have to do any material changes as far as like this brick versus that brick? It's
nothing significant. It's more of a procedural thing regarding the installation and the process at which those components would be installed.
Oh, okay.
So more relative to the project manual and material installation than anything else.
Okay, gotcha. And do you know when that would go out?
The hope would be to have our first two advertisements at the end of July. So I think it's the 18th and 25th.
Okay, and then bids would be opened.
I kind of forgot to bring that with me, but late July, early August, and we'll have that approved by the board shortly thereafter. And it's minimal delays from the original schedule that you saw.
Okay. And what was the reason for the delay then specifically?
So a rebid, you mean?
Yeah. For the
There's some material specifications in regarding the installation of the components in the design of the star that the engineer is recommending changing. Which is going to affect the bids and the way they're done, with pieces are installed. So that's the reason for the recommended rejection of bids and reposting of bids.
What did he recommend that was different?
You want me to get into construction technical terms?
Yeah, is it just in general, like what, like a general description of?
The general description would be in the way the star inside the memorial was designed and how they were to build that in the specs of the drawings. The engineer had reviewed that during the bid and determined that there was a more efficient, more sustainable long-term solution to the installation method than what was originally provided. So
and
ultimately,
it's less expensive.
Should be minimal change, if anything at all. But since it is material and an installation type thing that affects the project manual, rejecting the bids after talking with legal was the proper route to take.
So do we think the new bids would come in closer to budget?
It's possible. I think with the procedural change, there may be more competitive bids. But of the three bids that we opened the first go around, only one bid was within the estimate range. The other two were substantially more and would not be usable going forward. So potentially this minor change could open the door for the project to be done in a different fashion, it might help it be more competitively bid.
Okay.
So what was the change done? You said the materials were changed to make it, was that done for the purposes of getting lower bids? Or just because it was more sustainable, or just it wouldn't work the way it was proposed?
There were some inquiries from the contractors that bid into the, I would say, long-term health of the memorial. The way that it was being constructed and designed had some potential flaws that they were a little concerned about that lasting and providing us something to the township that would be, decades of enjoyment as opposed to something that might break down sooner.
Like rust or
It was
break?
concrete type work that component was the main driver of this change.
Okay, yeah. I just want to be extra thorough because we've been waiting for so long. I want to make sure we have a good reason for the public for why it's being delayed. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and the REA for the stop sign, just so people are aware, is so when you're going like to the chiller, it's at the intersection where if you were turning into, say, go to Aldi or GFS, it's that intersection, is that correct?
Yes, correct. And again, these are some of the REAs that we put in are really kicking some of the questions from our community to a traffic engineer who
Right, which we
obviously.
appreciate us,
Yeah.
Staff doing that, because they're the ones that can answer these questions.
Yeah, a lot of times these requests are vetted and found that there'll be recommendations that sometimes come from it and sometimes there's not. But with the procedure of at least requesting the help of the traffic engineers from the county engineer's office, I think it's really helpful for us since none of us fill that role. So,
Right. So it just allows them to put some eyes on a particular intersection and say, yes, there should be an additional stop sign here, or no, this is.
or as it was
best.
designed is the best thing that we have right now. And they'll provide recommendations to us, which we'll communicate to the community.
Yeah, great.
And where would the stop sign be if
It would
there
be
was
on
one?
Highfield is where the question is, you add a stop sign on Highfield, so that
At
they're
where?
at Hidden Ravines, like between those
Yes.
condos. Because they have a hard time getting out with all the traffic that's going on High Meadows, right?
Yeah, they're concerned about the speed on Highfield, and they're thinking the request was that a stop sign would help control speed.
So Highfield and Hidden Ravine.
Correct.
Well, and are they going to do that in advance of the BJ's being open? Because that might change things.
Generally, the engineer's office will take into account the average daily traffic counts expected by new development and combine that into the recommendations that they come back to us.
So are they aware that there's a BJ's going in?
Yeah, they review all those plans prior to us getting them.
So I would say as of like today, that would never be approved, but if the BJ's might change.
Perhaps that might change.
Yeah. Doubtful, but yeah, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, we can always ask the question. We appreciate you guys passing along. Thank you, Silas.
On a stop sign, just to help you guys out, Glendon Township on Madrid added 3 stop signs, traffic management, and the Franklin County Engineer's Office deemed that they had to remove 2 of those.
Oh, right,
because you can't use a stop sign as a traffic management device.
Right, yeah.
So if that's the sole reason putting the stop sign in.
But we can ask the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's just
Yeah.
the traffic control. I mean, there's when people can't get in it. It's different. Traffic control is more for like speeding, where you put it to slow people down versus people can't turn safely left or right. It's a little bit
But I
different.
was just going by his comment that some of the residents had said they were concerned about the speed.
Oh, that's just because
Yeah.
they can't get in and out of their neighborhood. Yeah, I doubt it would be reduced in speed. I doubt
Well, it's already
that.
25.
It's already 25.
Yeah, I guess it won't, definitely
Can't
won't be. Might be increased to 35. Never know.
Okay, anything else, operations?
Not unless there's any questions.
I do not have any.
I make a motion to approve resolution 23-192, authorizing township administrator execution of a request for engineering assistance with the Delaware County Engineers Office regarding Highfield Drive.
Second?
Mr. Ringgold?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes. And make a motion to approve resolution 23-193, rebid Veterans Memorial Project.
Second?
Mr. Ringgold?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes. Okay, fire report. Thank you. Chief?
Good afternoon, Board. Before I get started on my long list of one item, I just wanted to take the moment to publicly acknowledge and thank both Michelle and Lisa Kraft for all the work they've done with this levy. Lisa Kraft's been a huge help with this, putting all this stuff together, and I do appreciate the time you spent putting all these calculations together and everything. So when it comes to math, I'm a firefighter, so if it was on fire, we'd be good. And then I also want to take a second to publicly acknowledge the men and women that are over there at the Township Fire Department that every day serve our community. Many people don't realize what they go through on days. This weekend was a pretty bad day for them. And, they see the world's worst and respond to some of the worst moments of people's lives. People losing loved ones, whether it be husbands, wives, fathers, also kids and babies. And but every day they continue to push on, they continue to do their job professionally and dedicated. And I may be a little biased, but I think we have some of the best young firefighters in this area. Proud to be with them. So I'd like to thank them for that.
Yeah, the amount of compassion that they show. I mean, I've experienced it personally. So many residents are so grateful. We get so many thank yous. I do think we have the best. I am biased, but I think we have the best department in the whole state.
But today what we have in front of you is the FMI, which is Fire Manufacturing Innovation. This is the proposal for our Quint, which right now is sitting at FMI. What they're doing is going to fabricate the compartments, so all the little shelvings and the tool holders, that's what they do in the compartments, so that we're able to put tools in there without throwing them into a big heap, which if we're on a call would be a bad thing. So, and then that was part of that goes along with the purchase order that was on the front, part of the consent agenda. So, and we also had legal review the proposal too.
And I also wanted to publicly recognize that we had a firefighter who retired in April, and he passed away less than 2 weeks ago. So Jeff Mitchell was with the department for 19 years.
He would have been in for, about 19 years, yes.
Yeah, and so just a great loss to the community. He was also a firefighter in the LaRue Township Fire Department as well. Has, kids in their 20s, grandchildren. A number of us were able to, a lot of the firefighters were able to be up at the visitation, the funeral, and a couple of us from the staff were able to go as well. So just our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family, his wife and his grandkids, and everybody, even, his fire family as well. One of the gentlemen that spoke at the funeral talked about, the different families, his fire family at Orange, his fire family in LaRue, and then it's also his, biological family. So, it's unexpected.
Very young.
Very young. So just to publicly acknowledge that. And, praying for that. So. Okay. Anything else fire related? I make a motion to approve resolution 23-194, approving an agreement with the Fire Manufacturing Innovations LLC.
Second?
Mr. Ringel?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mrs. Faust?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Board.
Mrs. Kraft, our fiscal report.
Okay, really nothing to show. We are finishing bank reconciliation today, so in your email the next day or two, you should see the reports, and we'll put the bank statements and reports in your office for signature and review. And then the audit, I did email. Our audit is in draft. It is completed, and it appears to be good news. So that is great. It's not public record yet until it's approved by the auditor of state. So once, all I'm waiting on is feedback. I did hear from one trustee that they do not need an exit or a post-conference review. I just need feedback from the other two on whether we'd like a post-conference review. So.
Is that like a post-audit conference?
That just discuss what's in the report.
Yeah.
If there's questions.
Okay.
I did question one other thing I'm waiting on, and that is something related to whether or not there should be a finding for recovery from a prior employee or not. So.
And is that a conversation just with the two of us, or is it a conversation with somebody from the
Auditor's office.
The auditor's office, yeah. Our auditor just quit, so it would be somebody, I think his supervisor. So
I have a question for you, but
And I'd like to thank Fiscal Officer Kraft and her team for the tremendous amount of work that they've done to get the township into the financial health that it is.
thank you. No, I mean, Todd and Leanne knocked it out of the park, so kudos to them, and, not giving too much away, but it looks like it's a clean audit. I don't know when the last time we've had a clean audit, so proud of them, proud of the team for doing that. Last audit was 19 and 21. And that findings that we had in that audit were corrected. That was related to how they were accounting for grant funding.
And with the findings that you referenced, which part of the report is that?
We didn't have any findings.
Oh, I thought you said that. Any
That was in
current
the previous.
employee-
In the previous. No, it's not in there. That's what I'm questioning.
Okay, because I didn't see it. I was like,
I didn't
wait
see
a
it in
minute.
there either. So I
I
sent
gotcha.
back an email asking for, clarification on whether that's happening or not. So.
Okay, so there was just a couple like questions about procedures that you
Yeah, it's
respond
been-
to,
yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
put that in writing, and then there wasn't really anything. And then will you be discussing the audit probably when it's
Yeah, once it's-
finalized?
yep,
You'll kind of-
once
so if
it's
we have
finalized.
questions or comments, we
Yep.
can request the stuff that was fixed from prior audit.
Yeah, and that's addressed in the report. It said that it's corrected. The
Yeah, it's
material
corrected.
weakness or whatever from the previous audit is corrected.
Yeah, I just had some questions that we can ask when we get
Perfect.
back.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Great job.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Yeah, great job.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay. Michelle?
All right, I have one item under the administrative report, and as we've had discussions in recent meetings, our solid waste contract is a partnership with Genoa and Liberty Township. We've been working with them for several years now on having a mutual waste and recycling agreement. So earlier this year, we went out to bid. We received one bid, which is Rumpke, who is our current waste collecting vendor. And so we have it in front of you today. It was reviewed by Mark Fowler over at the prosecutor's office, and legal was comfortable enough for all three townships to move forward with a resolution. Part of the contract, Rumpke did provide 3 different options, which is typical practice for them. The first option is our pretty much our existing level of service, and that was an increase in about 12%, an increase from the previous contract. And keep in mind, the previous contract was 6 years in length, so to have a 12% increase over 6 years isn't terrible, I would say. Prior to the 6 years from the 2017 contract, when we moved into our current one, it was a 10% increase at that point. So, I think the Genoa, Liberty, and Orange staff who was in charge reviewed this, which was Silas Bowers was part of the review, are comfortable moving forward with option 1 if we want to keep our level of service. Now, I know in recent conversations there has been discussion about increasing or having specific yard waste collections. That's included in option 2 and 3. However, when you look at the rates of that, it's about a 48% increase in the rates if we go that route. So, which has been the reason why we haven't done it in the past, but they did include that in this packet here. So the resolution in front of you today is to move forward with option 1 with the joint partnership with Genoa and Liberty.
Would you mind reiterating the term for option 1? How long that contract will be?
So the term for option 1 is 3 years. It starts in February of next year. We purposely do it in advance just in case we have to switch vendors. And then there's an opportunity to extend it another 3 years, which is what we've typically done in the past.
And when do you decide if you're going to extend it?
Closer to the 3-year end.
Okay.
So what the base price, what will that be then?
So the base price would be $19.04.
The cost for the trash cans go up at all? Does the rest of them the trash cans?
I don't think, did the trash cans cost go up?
No, the one change that Rumpke did offer in clarification was that if recycling carts were desired by the board, that those could all be included at no cost. And the people that were currently paying them, that cost would go away for them too, if they were to be included for the whole community.
And that's the large trash can recycling things versus the
rolling ones versus the bins, correct?
bins.
Because they are charging now. I don't know if you guys know that they are charging for the lids now. Because we have a lot of people that have been coming to the door asking for lids, but you have to get them directly through Rumpke now. It's $6 a lid.
But the red recycling bins are still free.
The
And those
bins are
available
free, the
here.
lids are not.
And we can move into the carts, and that's, that can be determined per township, so it doesn't have to be, Genoa and Liberty want to stick with the bins, they can, and that's.
I would rather not make a decision that we would have to go to the bins because like I have a 2-car garage and I can fit a large trash can, but I do not have room for a large trash can and a large recycling can, but I have space for the 2 bins. So I would like to leave the option for the residents if they want.
So they can get a large container if they want?
I think it
I have
has
to pay for it though.
Yeah.
I do, yeah, I pay for it.
Do you know how much that is?
I don't, a couple bucks a month. That's worth it. It's easier for me, you know. It holds more, so I don't have 3 bins. I just have 1 big trash can.
But what was Silas was saying, what was he saying? That we could have the option to get a larger bin?
We
if
can go
want?
with a recycling cart instead of the bin, at no additional cost if we wanted to.
But everyone has to have that container, is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that it's just not gonna cost any more than anyone can ask for it, or we have to make a decision?
I think it would transition to all the residents. That was my understanding.
Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so anyone can ask for one of those now at no charge, is that what you're saying?
Well, no,
There's
I
a charge. I pay extra for my bin.
Yeah, the charge for
For
the
the
new
can.
contract would be $3.50 a month if you wanted the recycling wheeled cart, as opposed to the 18-gallon bins.
So bins, if we went with moving forward on carts, the bins would not exist.
But you're saying if we did that, then
If we keep
there'd
it
still
as-
be a charge?
Yeah. Well, if we keep it as is, then the resident can pay the extra $3 for a cart if they want.
Or
Or keep the bins.
so the price for
And there's no price difference if we just everybody switches.
I'm confused.
I think it's like
Okay,
they're
too,
my
because
guess.
I-
It's easier to pick up for them as
Is
far
our
as
recycling
the carts.
cart,
Yeah.
which is a large trash can, correct?
Right.
Right.
So if
So-
everyone goes with the cart, then there's no extra charge. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? We get rid
But
of,
we have to get rid of the bins to go to the cart.
and so everyone has to turn their bins in and just not use
What
them.
do they do with the
or-
bins?
Take
Give them
them
to somebody
somewhere
else.
else.
They recycle it.
I'm sure.
They're recycling.
I don't know.
No, they go in the
That's what
landfill.
But like, I don't have a Rumpke trash can. I just bought mine at Home Depot.
Are they pretty big, Lisa? Are they?
They're smaller than the brown ones, you know, the
big
big,
trash.
yeah, they're smaller than that, but they're nice. I think it's easy. It's a nice size. We have a lot of recycling.
Yeah, there's 2 different options. I'm sorry, Lisa. There's 2 different options for the recycling carts. It's 65 gallon or 95 gallon.
Oh, you can pick which one you want.
So, do you remember if it was a specific size of the cart they wanted to transition to?
I'm looking for that answer right now, actually.
But yeah, I mean, if the board likes having the option as the bins, we should not opt into the transition of the carts.
Yeah, but how big? If it's a small bin, that was.
And I just may have to rearrange my garage. It's okay.
Oh, where do you put your bins now?
On shelf.
Oh, on
I've got
shelf,
shelving,
okay.
and so it's on the bottom.
And we don't have to make that decision today either. So
I would just say it
um,
also helps with trash going around the community.
Yeah, that's totally.
Because now that you have to
Because right
take
now
the
trash
lids,
flows around the community.
And they fling
Right.
them everywhere, and there's always like
Right.
20
So
of them
I-
laying around.
and I think
I'm-
that's another reason why they like the carts too. It's
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
But we'd have to pick 6.
And there's no additional cost to the families.
that's what they're offering to us.
I kind of like
Maybe
that.
let's do that.
But I don't know about
We might
60.
want to evaluate what the size of the
65 or
recycling
90,
carts
yeah.
are, but the fact that it's a additional service almost that would be free of charge to
Right.
residents, I think that would be
And
worthwhile.
stop. I'm ready to
Yeah.
stop the trash flow.
And most people have more than one bin. I get tired of hauling 3 or 4.
I can
That's why we
I
went
just
to
make
the
my kid do
cart.
it.
I can
exactly
get
why.
more information on that. Again,
Yeah, I'd like
we
to
can
maybe
approve the
consider that.
contract today, but that's just an
Can
option.
you get the sizes and the?
Yep, I can look into that. I'll get a
That might
picture
be
of it
interesting.
too.
Yes, pictures next to people so we can
Yeah,
comparison. And our collection days, are they still Thursday, Friday for the township? That didn't change?
that the collection days did not change.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so okay. So for the bid with the including, it's $19 for garbage, right, and recycling, but it's $25 for.
Yeah, so option 2, I mean, it increases substantially.
That's what the yard waste.
But it's $6 more.
Yeah, it's like a 40.
Is that?
The difference
What did they
is,
do with the yard waste? Where did they take it?
the difference, all their drop-off locations are approved by the DKMM, is that all of them? Delaware, Knox, Marion, Morrow Solid Waste District. So those are all approved drop-off locations as part of the contract for all 3 townships. To answer the question, alternate 2 is a 5-yearly, includes a 5-yearly curbside or yard waste specific location. So right now they collect everything together. Alternate 2 offers 5 separate yard waste collection dates throughout the year.
So then the community would have to know. that this is the
Correct.
time
There's
you put it.
additional communication with some additional
Which they do that.
pieces
Rockford
there.
does that, right?
Alternate 3 is separate weekly and yard waste and trash. I'm sorry, separate weekly yard waste throughout the year. So I have 2 different trucks running all year long.
So basically, then you have 3 trucks running because you have a recycling truck, a trash truck, and a yard waste truck. Well, like trucks on our roads and that kind of stuff. But that's just another.
But
Just an inclusive look at all the options for all the townships to consider. Correct.
Right.
But, okay, so alternate 3 is the same price as alternate 2,
Yeah, it is.
but what's the difference? Just,
They're coming every week versus 5 times, and the price is the same.
yeah, that doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense.
This was just the request of the 3 townships. Obviously, there's some different needs and desires and wishes out of each township. So that part of the bid package was to provide some flexibility for each township to try to fit their needs.
Yeah, but.
I don't know why the cost isn't different, Lisa, between alternate 2 and 3, but that's what they included in their bid.
Unlimited refuse and garbage collection and weekly recycling and two 18-gallon recycling containers. Yeah, I don't see. So did we get, we had a lot of people that were upset about the yard waste not being recycled, but what's the current price that we pay?
Current price we pay now is $16.93
Per month?
per month.
So it's 17 increasing to 19 or 25.
And they bill quarterly, is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, 'cause I never know the amount. It changes all the time. I always pay it wrong.
And if I'm not mistaken, residents can currently have their yard waste collected if they put it in an appropriate bag at the curb.
Well, it goes to landfill. It all goes to landfill.
That was my understanding.
Doesn't it go to the facility in Delaware County first for sorting?
I think
It just all goes to landfill.
it all goes to landfill.
And even if you have it in the bag, it still goes to landfill. So a few years ago, we had the, maybe 6 years ago, we did have the curb collection of yard waste. And if you put it in the bags, it would go to the composting facility. And then that got changed for some reason. I think all 3 townships had to go with the same deal or something. So I don't.
And that is correct. So whatever option we choose today, if Genoa and Liberty choose a different option, I'll be back here. So, but it is my understanding that all 3 are Genoa and Liberty are going to be moving forward with option 1 in the next week.
Because we had so many, now I don't speak for everybody, but I feel like we had a lot of upset residents when all of a sudden all of their yard waste, which you don't have yard waste on here.
Correct, that's why.
I guess maybe for 9 months, 8 months, 6, 7 months. But I had a lot of people who were very upset because they would put it out and they just started throwing away in the trash.
Especially if you're buying those brown bags.
People
Put
still do
leaves
it.
in, and then it's just going into the landfills. I mean, it will decompose faster than if it's in a plastic bag. It's not.
Landfills are
It's not
designed to be anaerobic and they won't decompose at all. Because if they decompose, they contaminate the groundwater and all that.
Oh,
So they don't need, they're anaerobic. I would like to, can we hold off on that? Because how long do we have? Because I don't, to the next meeting, so if we pick a different option, for sure,
I would like the board to tell me what option they are leaning towards so I can let Genoa and Liberty know as soon as possible.
I'm kind of leaning toward, it is $6 more a month.
It's a 48% increase from our previous price for that amount.
Yeah, but what's the increase from what we're paying currently? What did you say we're paying?
$17 now.
$16.93. So
That's quite
And then
big.
we're going up to 25 if we choose the.
And people were paying for it before. They were willing to, like 6 years ago, and a lot of people seemed upset about. I mean, I was.
But at this
first
point,
on.
are they used to? There's no change if we keep it going forward.
And I even had, when the guy came in, they can actually, you know what, they can estimate for us also the amount of yard waste that's generated by our community. And that might be, if it's like, 100,000 tons or something, he actually had that generated from the old statistics, because they would tell us how much was recyclable and how much garbage there was. And I think when they meant, this is back in the old days, maybe 2016 or 2017, but it seemed considerable to me that we were just throwing all that in the landfill. And I think a lot of residents wanted it to be composted, yeah. And I'm kind of a.
And Runkey has
independent.
it goes to a composting location.
Yeah, they have a certain facility that's a couple hours away that composts it, yeah. And of course, they couldn't just throw it in the landfill, that would be against contract. But I mean, I'm kind of personally leaning towards the going back to the yard waste collection, because
So when you say going back, my guess tells me we haven't done it at least 12 years. Because the last 2 contracts have not included the yard
but
waste.
what was I think we were doing 3-year contracts at one point. How many years is this for?
This is 3 with an additional 3-year extension, which it seems like
I think it must have been
we do.
maybe 6 years ago.
The 2017 contract did not include the
It
yard
did not?
waste, correct?
Included what we currently have, which is the yard waste pickup, but combined with the regular trash.
Yeah, so we
Correct.
haven't
Recycling is the only thing that's separate.
But that was 2017, so up until 2017 then, I think we had the yard waste. So,
I didn't look that far.
yeah, 6 years ago, possibly, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. So the 2017 contract. So it would be 12 years that we haven't done the yard
So
waste.
you look
Probably
at the
at least
last
9.
2 contracts.
9. Well, okay.
No,
We'll say at
definitely
least
not.
9 years.
Well, but 9 years since you signed it, but if it was effective in 2014, that would be for 3 years up until 2017. So we haven't had it picked up for 6 years, is my guess, because 6 years actually just popped in like 2017. Yeah, a lot of people were really upset, so I just think that we're a community that's pretty affluent, and a lot of us don't mind paying, an extra few dollars for the environment, but I'd like to get a little bit more input on that. Can we find out what the, who's our contact there?
His name's Blake Austin.
I'll say that I'm personally leaning towards option 1, mostly because of the cost consciousness. That if Liberty and Genoa Townships are also leaning towards option 1, that our trash service would be more expensive than our township neighbors. I also do a little bit of my own composting of my yard waste, so in small amounts, I think that's manageable. But as I think
It's the reuse.
right.
Just well into the woods.
Oh, I do that too, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I
Most
mean, we
people
can
can't.
do it at the next meeting. Our
Can we
goal.
get more resident feedback on that? Can we post it on?
Michelle, I can chime in. I have the annual reports we have, which don't include the yard waste totals. They only include the solid waste and the recycling totals. So the yard waste totals that I think is what sounds like you're looking
Yeah.
for, they don't provide those to us since it's not a separate collection.
Yeah,
So
they
for
use
19,
too. Yeah.
for 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22, they did not track those. Only recycling and solid waste.
I'm sorry, what?
Right.
They have not tracked yard waste the last few years.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense because they weren't pulling it separately.
So-
Right, how could they track it? But I'm just saying they might be able to approximate based on other communities.
I don't. If it's all getting thrown into the solid waste, I'm not sure if they could track that.
Well, based on other communities, it's probably pretty consistent.
What other communities do
Separate
know
yard waste.
separate?
I felt like everyone used to do it.
Like I know Sunbury does when I used to look for some of those up in there. Like
Or do they?
But they would push them to the side of the street and they would come and suck them up. So it was different than back.
I can look
Yeah.
I can look.
We
we'll
can pay
we'll
a
ask
service
him.
too to do that.
And
That's
I
the
can
major
see
issue.
if Blake can come to our next trustee meeting too.
Yeah, let's
Yeah, would you do that? That'd be great.
have a presentation.
I wonder because I would like to I'm trying to find it in some old.
I have one from 2014, if that would help at all.
Yeah.
The total,
Yeah.
No, is it 14? Might have it wrong year. It might be mislabeled here. Looks like it was a little over 1,000 tons for the entire year.
And how does that compare to the trash for that year?
Solid waste was over 7,000 tons for the year.
So 1,000 tons of yard waste.
So you're looking at 100, I probably averaged 150, 170 ton a week in solid waste, and some yard waste weeks were less than a ton. Some were, the peak was probably about 20 throughout the whole year. So it's pretty small percentage of yard waste.
Is that 15% was yard waste?
Yes.
1,000 versus
1.7.
1.7, which is
1.8.
Total waste is
Yeah.
8. 12%.
I think it's safe to assume that yard waste stuff has probably changed quite a bit since 2014, in the last 9 years, with the amount of landscaping companies and contractors that are trusted to handle landscaping and mowing and trimming and things like that too. So I think that's probably, that landscape, no pun intended, has probably changed quite a bit in 9 years.
Less residents doing the work themselves, and probably, I mean, I don't have a landscaper, so I have my husband.
Most people do this. So, I mean,
A lot of my neighbors pay people to do it.
yeah, I pulled up, I have one from 2014 here, I pulled up also. Yeah, it shows 1,158 tons of yard waste, and it actually shows it by week, which is actually really handy. Less during the summer. Yeah, I would maybe, and as recyclables too, I would like to just look into a little bit more, because if the residents are willing to pay for it, but maybe they're not. But it's basically $6 a month.
So every bill is additional $18.
Well, yeah,
it's
quarterly, yeah. But I mean, the residents, a lot of them were. I thought some seemed really outraged by it, but I mean,
We haven't received any public comment or resident feedback since I've been here regarding yard waste issues.
yeah, we're in a contract though.
But I just,
Some people, as new people move into a community,
Yeah.
they might say, "Do you pick up the yard? When is
Well,
the yard waste getting?"
My neighbors put them out sometimes in yard waste bags. I don't even think they realize that they're not. Like even, you even thought they were getting picked up. I think a lot of people think if you put them in the bags, they're getting picked up because other communities do. I don't know if City of
I
Columbus
think they're
does.
being picked up, just not composted.
Correct. Yeah, maybe just one more meeting just to make sure. I'm
And I
making the
can-
right decision.
And we're doing this with Genoa and Liberty,
yeah, that's the tricky part because there's 3 board meetings
right?
and 3 approvals, and 3 of this, everybody has to have the same option. So, but I'll relay our comments to Genoa and Liberty, and we'll see. I know. I want to say Genoa has their meeting this week and Liberty has their meeting next week, so we would have some pretty good answers, I guess, as far as what they want to move forward with it by the next
And
meeting.
we can still make the recycling container decision on our own.
That is on our
not
own,
impacted by
yes, yeah. But if, like I said, if Genoa and Liberty go with option 1 and we go option 2, we have to reopen the conversation.
that. Okay.
So, but I will relay this to them. We're the first ones to talk about it, so we have the upper hand.
Oh, great.
All right.
So we're not going to do anything with that resolution.
No. So,
Right.
so it'll be 195 is the next one, and I don't have anything else except for the executive session.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything?
I do not.
Resolution numbers.
Yeah. I make a motion to approve resolution. We're going to move into executive session. And I'll just read the whole thing. Make a motion to approve resolution 23-195, enter into an executive session to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 121.22G8 for the purpose of considering confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance that is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under Revised Code 715, 5709.73 through 5709.75 and or Revised Code 715. The executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with a proposed economic development project, and to consider the sale of property in accordance with Section 505.10 of the revised code to prevent premature disclosure of information that would give an unfair bargaining advantage to a person whose private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
Second?
Mr. Ringgold?
Yes?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes?
Mrs. Faust?
Yes. And invited to attend are the trustees, fiscal officer, administrator, and then into the second one, Silas. And legal counsel.
Yes. Legal counsel for both of them.
Correct, yes. Correct. Okay, executive session.
Okay, we're back on.
Okay, I make a motion to approve resolution 23-176, return to regular session.
96.
Well, yep, 196.
Second?
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Knapp,
Yes.
Mrs. Faust.
Yes. Okay, I make a motion to approve resolution 23-197, meeting adjourned.
Second?
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Knapp,
Yes.
Mrs. Faust.